How's it going, you lot, and welcome back to another video with me, your authentic Cockney. Now, I was going to do this video a bit later on down the line, but I got a nice bit of love for the last video I did, which was the joining of the carpet. So what I thought we'd do is ride the wave of that and jump in straight away with a part 2. Rather than leaving it a bit later on down the line. So what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be actually fitting a carpet. So the last video we joined the carpet. Now we're going to be fitting a carpet onto this plywood sub floor here. I'll explain a little bit more about that in just a moment. But let's have a look at the tools that I'm going to be using to sort this carpet out. So let's begin over here. This is called a hammer stapler or hammer tacker, and what we do is we pop it open here, and these staples down here, or tacks, whatever we refer them to, we slot into there like that, and then we simply close like so. You've got quite a satisfying nice little click when you close that. There you go. And what you do with this is, I'll demonstrate when we do it, is you actually bang it very lightly, obviously for the purpose of the video. I'm not going to be going too mad with it, but we bang it on the plywood or so lightly to tack or staple the underlay when we come to that point. So that's your hammer tacker. Next up is a metal bolster. We're going to be using this to bolster in and fit the carpet, or tuck it in to what would be the crease between the edge of the floor and the skirting or the wall. We're going to be using our trusty Stanley blade, obviously. With a fresh blade, let's just sort it out now. There you go. There's your fresh blade in there. Just pop that in there. Flick that over. And you're golden, mate. There you go. That's ready to go. Next up, the hammer. Because we're going to be tapping in a bit of gripper around the edge, and I'm going to show you that as we get to it. We've got our tin snips here, but I use them, these have seen better days if I'm honest, I use them to cut the gripper that we're going to be fitting to size. And then if we do use them, we've got some nails in this part here. We may or may not use them, we'll see how we go. And the other tool I'm going to be using, the main one really, is this. This is a stretcher or a carpet knee kicker, and I'll demonstrate how that is used. When we come to it, we're going to use this to actually stretch the carpet so it's nice and tight. Sweet, alright, so let me move these tools out of the way and we will start on the subfloor. Okay, so I've shifted all the tools to one side, and now obviously it's a bit tricky for me to actually fit an entire room with the camera angles that I'm going to be using. So what I'm going to do is downsize it, and I want you to imagine that this here perimeter is our room. So this would be the wall or the skirting around the room, and we've got a rectangle sort of square type room. And we're going to be going, imagine that this plywood we're using is your floorboards within your room. So we've got a bird's eye view of what might be a miniature or small sort of room. And what we're going to be doing when we start fitting the carpet, we have to do the prep first. And the first step to go down is this. It's the carpet gripper. Now this is a stick, a wooden stick of gripper, and if you can see here, just about to see, you've got little spikes that have been punctured into this gripper. And these little spikes slightly face one way, and I'm holding it in such a way that the spikes actually face this way at a very slight angle, and I'm going to show you why they do that in just a moment. We've also got nails that have been pre-put into the gripper, which we're going to tap in. I'm going to be as gentle as possible, obviously for the purpose of the video. We want it nice and chilled, so I'm going to be trying to tap these in as gently as possible, but they do need to be tapped to get them into the wood. Now what we do is, when we put the gripper around the perimeter of the room, I'm going to start over here. We're going to line it up, and we need to leave a bit of a gap, which we're going to be tucking the carpet behind. So let's go. I've marked it off, but a bit tricky on the old angle, so I'm going to put it there. And what we're going to do is I'm going to make a cut, so we get our snips and we make a cut here, and we put some pressure pushing down onto the wood to get that nice cut there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm lining it up nicely with that sort of edge where I've marked off or pre-marked off where our wall is. I'm going to take it here and do another cut just about there, trying to keep it nice and chilled, so not too much pressure on that old gripper. Let's put that to the side. Now that's all right for that sort of edge. Now what I'm going to do is just tap that in. That is a little bit of a loudish bang on those nails to get them in, so I do apologise for a little tiny bit of loud noise, but I do need a bit of force on these nails to be able to get them in. But once they're in, they're in. So now we're going to come here with our next bit of gripper, and we're going to fit it against this wall here, and I quite like that. That's basically pretty much along that line. I'll let shift it back slightly. Yeah, that's looking pretty nice, looking pretty nice. Let's go for that. So again, we're going to take our cutters and we're going to cut right along the edge of that other piece again. So we are nice and flush. So let's put that there. Now you can see that corner's nice along the edge here. I'm going to bring that down slightly, and then we're going to make our next cut about here on the corner of our perimeter. Beautiful, mate. Let's put that out of the way. And now that is our consider back wall of the room. And now I'm just going to tap that in. Excuse the noise. That's good enough for me. Now let's continue. Now what we're going to do is line this up again, this bit of grip area. And I do beg your pardon, but I forgot to tell you about these spikes. As I mentioned earlier, the gripper has got spikes on it that have been punctured into it to stick out. Now what this is going to do is grip onto the backing of the carpet when we fit it, and the reason that they're at a slight angle is that the angle you fit these at goes towards the wall or the skirting, and the reason for that is when the carpet sits on it, it clings onto it going that way, and then when we stretch off of the carpet coming back, these are going to pull, stick into the carpet and grip onto it. That's why they're called gripper, and it's going to pull the carpet away from us as we stretch it, so we get the carpet nice and flat when we end up fitting it. Now, I do apologise about the slight unevenness. It's a bit tricky for me to keep eyes on the job and the camera at the same time. But let's say about there, cheating it very slightly. And we're going to make just one cut this time because we've already got, using the edge, and we're going to butt that against that other bit of gripper. Apologies for the racket once again. And we're in with that lovely, beautiful job. Now, all we've got to do is the remaining bit, just down here at the bottom. So again, we're lining up this corner, nice with that, so that's flush. And all we're going to do here is just make a cut where that other one meets again. Put that to the side. Sorted, mate, beautiful. Let's just tap that in, excuse the noise once again. Okay, so we have grippered our room. So we've got all edges grippered, and this is what's going to grip onto the edge of the carpet when we come to fit it. Now, we've got to fill this part in the middle. And obviously, when we're fitting with gripper, we always put underlay as well. So I've got this piece of underlay here, and we're going to be laying it into the middle here and tacking it in with the hammer tacker or stapler. This is beautiful 11mm proper soft underlay, mate. This will really insulate your house nice and cozy underneath your feet and all. So when we're fitting the underlay, we need to cut this into the gripper, and typically what you do is you would skirt, what is called skirting one side of the gripper if you do have a straight edge of underlay. Now, as you can see, this bottom edge, I'm attempting to skirt this bit of gripper rather than cutting it. I'm using the edge of the underlay butted up to the gripper. Now, if you're lucky, you can sometimes skirt two. Let's have a little bit of a go, see if we can get away with it. So I'm going to shift that over slightly onto that gripper, sort of getting it there, a little bit running out there, but I'll take that. I'm going to cut that in. Okay, so lovely. Now I'm going to take my hammer tacker, and again, apologies for the noise, and that's how that works. You just bang it onto the underlay, and it's got a nice fixing. It's very quick, no messing around, straight in. See them staples, now fix it to the underlay so it don't slide about. Just checking where we are down there. Just 3 staples long is enough for me. And let's do another last 3 over here. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the underlay's fixed pretty much. That's quite nicely fixed. Now, what we've got to do is we've got to cut this into the gripper. So it's all butted up nicely. Now, as I said, this edge skirt's pretty nice. That's already butted up without cutting it. But this runs out slightly here. So what I'm going to do is just to find that edge at this corner here, is I'm going to come over and cut here down. And the best way to cut this is when we're doing it, is to run the knife blade along the gripper. So you'll punch through the underlay, just checking where that gripper is, come through, and you'll use the gripper as a guide for going down, cutting this underlay until we get to that edge. Let's have a look. Not too bad. That's pretty decent. Could have maybe been a little bit closer, but that's all right. And again, we're going to slice this bit off here up to the part where it's already butted, and that will do nicely. And that should put off maybe with a little bit more cutting. Lovely. Beautiful. Now, just here at our back wall, again, pushing through the knife blade, just finding that gripper, going along all the way, carefully, cutting off at the edge. And there you go. That is pretty decent, mate. Pretty happy with that. I'm just going to slice a little cheeky bit off there. There you go. Beautiful. Lovely. Now, typically, when we have a doorway somewhere, if we had a doorway here, we would put a door bar down. I'm just going to sort this little bit out here. We would put down a door bar to separate the carpet onto the other piece of flooring in the next room. Might be another carpet, might be a laminate floor or a vinyl. You get different bars to be able to separate them. But basically, that is a prepped room. We've got the gripper ready to go around the edge, gripping onto the carpet. We've got the soft underlay in the middle. So that's all prepped. That's a prepped room. Beautiful. Now, what we come to is the carpet itself. Now, this is going to be a bit tricky for me to fit, because I'm going to need to get over it to kick it with the stretcher. So bear with me if I do block the camera slightly as I carry out my work. Now obviously with our room we've got here, we don't actually have walls as such. We've got the perimeter we're making out is a wall or a skirting, but we can't go up the wall with the carpet. So what I'd normally do would stretch it, it would go up the wall like that, the carpet, as you can see, and I'll stretch it and crease it in to the corner against the skirting, and that would make a cut. But I can't do that on this occasion because we don't have the walls to play about with. So I'm just going to be showing you how we stretch it on the gripper, making the cut, and then the process of what would be tucking it down into that gap between the gripper and the skirting. All right, so we're going to grab here our carpet stretcher, proper handy tool, mate. Love using this. And it has an extension on it. I've just pulled out there. You can press this little adapter button here, and that comes out and extends and closes. I'm going to bring it out just a little bit. That's it, lovely. And you get a bit more pressure on it when it's a bit longer. You can get a bit of a harder kick on it. So you sort of adapt it as to what you need for the job. Now, when we begin fitting a carpet, what end do we start at? We do a thing called skirting a wall. Now, I could do it with this, but typically what you do is when you skirt a wall is you'd actually move the carpet, and the edge of this carpet here, if I just move it up a little bit more, if I was to skirt a wall, this edge would go against the designated wall, and that wall would normally be the longest one that you're going to be starting at. So the straight edge of the carpet, normally all the edges are straight, because when they cut it down the warehouse, you're getting a straight edge cut. The widths are 4 or 5 metre width, so therefore they'll be straight and all. So hopefully, if you've got straight walls in the room, you go against it with a skirted wall, and that will be the wall you start at. And typically you don't need to cut that, because that is the wall you're going to be tucking down first into this gripper, and then using that as a starting point to stretch across to make the carpet all nice and flat, you know what I mean? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here. I've just pulled that slightly over the gripper. And what you would do, if we had a wall here, I would do the process of tucking this down, which would mean me going along, tucking that down. If you can make that out at this edge here, I'll bring it back up for you just a little bit so you can see. Bringing it down and just tucking that edge down between the gripper and the bottom of the wall or the skirting. But we don't have that, so I can't do that. So what I'm going to do is run this along the gripper. And if you can hear that, that is pushing the carpet onto the gripper. Just get once over. Okay, so if I pinch that at that edge, that is nicely fastened onto those grippers now. So I've just pushed them pins into the back of the carpet. Beautiful. Now, what I'm going to do, now this edge is fastened, I'm now going to stretch across over to the opposite wall, and what that's going to do is pull that tight off of this skirted wall that we have just fitted. That's going to just check where that is, so that's round about there, so we sort of field check for the gripper. That's the edge of our wall. We would see that anyway, but obviously we're not working with a real wall. So we grab our stretcher, and what we're going to do now, I'm going to have to be very careful with this because I don't want the wood underneath to slide because it isn't fastened. So what I'm going to do for the purpose of the video is just demonstrate what I would do when stretching this over. And I do apologise if I slightly get in the frame. I might need to move slightly as I do it. So if you can't see me stretching it completely on this part, you'll see when I go the opposite way along here. So starting at this edge, we're just going to tap the stretcher onto, just checking, onto those grippers. like so, and we go the whole way along. And each time we go along, we go literally move it about the width of the stretcher head, making sure we're covering it the whole way along, and just tapping it. Okay. So we've stretched it over. Like I said, I've only tapped it. I've not gone crazy because I don't want to move the wood underneath. And just to make sure, once again, that's on those pins. If you can hear that, we're just pushing it onto those gripper pins nicely. Sometimes you can use your hand, sometimes you can stand up and use your foot. I'm not going to do that on this occasion. Now, if we're going to say that now we're against the wall and we're fixed, now what we want to do is now cut that in. So we're going to get our Stanley and we're going to find the edge. Now, it's a bit difficult to fix to the gripper completely because, like I said, I can't stretch it too hard. So what I'm going to do here, typically you would lift the carpet up. If we're going against the wall, you lift it up and you'd slice that way to make sure you're not going short. But I haven't got the wall as a guide, so what I'm going to do is cut using the gripper, just the other side of it, as a bit of a guide as we go along. Just pushing against it, feeling that guide. Going that whole way along. Make sure that's cut off at the edge. And that is pretty good. Just got a little bit here. Now I'm having to adapt and customise slightly for the purpose of the video. But we've got that edge up there. Just going to move that slightly because that's shifted. Now I'm going to put it down so you can see. So if we now imagine that's the fitted edge against our skirting, what we would do now that's cut to the amount that we need, we would now use the bolster to tuck along, down into that little gap that we've got between the gripper and the skirting or the wall, just like that. And we'd make sure that it was nice and tucked down. And then that would be the finish that we're looking for, obviously, if we had a skirting. Now we've fitted both sides of the room. What we need to do is come round to this way, because I'm going to start on this wall. We haven't skirted this wall, so I'm going to need to just give that a tap to secure it to the grippers, and then again we're going to come across and stretch it over. The concept of this is basically what we want to do is get the carpet looking like a drum skin. So if you can imagine a drum skin, you'll pull it proper tight over the drum so it's nice and flat, and that's what we want to do with the carpet. So let's just shift these out of the way. I might have to get in the frame very slightly, but again, let's find the grippers so they're about here. And we're going to just, once again, tap. You can maybe see that a bit better as I kick it with my knee, trying to not get in the way too much. Tap that along to secure it onto those grips, and like I said, on a real job, I would be banging that pretty hard to get that on the gripper so it secures nicely and stretches the carpet nicely. Now, we're going to cut that in again, on this occasion using the gripper just as a bit of a guide, just that edge here. Lovely, nice. Take that bit of waste away. Now we can say we've got 3 fitted walls of this carpet. Alright. Just going to run that over. Again. But like I said, because we ain't kicking it too hard, it really is the stretcher that pushes it and secures it onto those pins. And because we ain't stretching too hard, because I don't want the subfloor to move everywhere, it's not fully securing, but you get the idea. So let's shift it out of the way, and we've got one last edge. I'm going to just shift it over slightly for you. We're going to be stretching this way here, pulling it over. So just move my bits and bobs to the side. And once again, let's have a little look where the gripper is here. And we're going to tap as we go along. Maybe a bit more. Beautiful. I hope you're sort of getting the idea with this. It is a bit tricky to do it in such a space. But I hope it gives you a good idea of how it's done. Now I'm just going to pull this over slightly. And we're going to cut using the gripper as a guide. Like I said, if we had a skirting or a wall, we'd be lifting the carpet up and cutting along, so we're leaving just enough little bit of carpet, maybe a centimetre, to be able to tuck down between the gripper and the wall. Beautiful. Lovely. Now, we've just cut this off. We've got our centimetre, let's say, and we're going to go along and tuck that carpet between that gripper and the skirting. Run that over, make sure it's nice and flat. And there. So that, in a shorter space of time, is your finished article. If I was working in a larger room, I'd be putting my back into stretching it out. The carpet has got a lot of stretch in it, a general carpet, so you have to hit them quite hard to get them nice and flat, to get them on and grip the pins, so it's all flat in the middle and flat around the edge. But I hope that's giving you some idea of how to fit a carpet. And there you go, that is our miniature tiny little room, fitted in carpet. We've had the prep, we've had the gripper, the underlay, and we've fitted the finished carpet on top. Beautiful, beautiful job. And once again, like I mentioned before, the carpet has a pile direction. As you can see, it brushes up and lies down. And another note, when you're fitting a room, you would normally fit the carpet going towards the door, so as you walk in the pole brushes up. Normally that's how you do it. And then with a staircase, the pile goes down the stairs. But there you go. Lovely miniature fitted room. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of slow fitting there. And once again, guys, give us a little bit of a shout in the comments if you enjoyed or what you want to see next. Do like, do subscribe if you ain't already. And I'll see ya, as usual, in the next one. Cheers.